Hey listeners, we're nearing the end of our 15th anniversary fundraising campaign, and we need your help to meet our goal. This campaign offers you a chance to win a unique food and music experience in one of the most exciting cities in America. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and you'll be entered to win dinner for two and 2 tickets to a concert in one of 8 amazing cities: New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Ardmore, Pennsylvania, and Asheville. All donations support our work educating food system storytellers. And when you donate, you can choose one of those cities and you'll be entered to win dinner and 2 tickets to a show. So help us reach our goal and enter to win dinner and a show in the city of your choice. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
With Shift Work, a podcast made in collaboration with RWCF and HRN, we're shifting the conversation about how the restaurant food you love makes its way to the table. Listen to and follow Shift Work on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome to the Grape Nation, your weekly wine journey. Our guests are Tomoko Koriyama and Guillaume Boat. We'll talk to Tomoko and Guillaume about Burgundy, Chantereves, and more. I'm your host, Sam Ben-Ruby. Stay with us for the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We bring wine to the people. Guillaume Boat and Tomoko Koriyama are the magical duo behind Chantereves in Savigny-les-Bains, Burgundy. As a couple in both life and the vineyard, they started their winery around 2010. A true Burgundian, Guillaume studied wine and bone, earned a degree in enology, worked with Gerard Boudot at Etienne Sauzet and Simone Bies. Originally from Japan, Tomoko headed to Germany, where she also received a degree in enology and worked and studied at Weingut Altenkirch, among many others. Before and after that, her love of Burgundy brought her to France and by fate met Guillaume. Their wines are refined, aromatic in energy, with finesse and subtlety, and of course worth seeking out. Welcome to the Grape Nation, Tomoko and Guillaume. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sam.
We are talking to Tomoko and Guillaume remotely via Zencastr. Where are you guys right now? Where are you speaking from?
Oh, from the living room.
Okay, in Burgundy.
We are comfortable in the couch.
Okay, that's good. So you're in France. All right, so let me get started. I really want our audience, our listeners, our podcasters, our podcast listeners, to get an idea really of who you are. So to me, yours is a story of love, passion, dedication, and of course, wine. So can you give us some background on your journey in life and wine that got you guys to Chantereves? First, Tomoko, tell us about life before you met Guillaume. And then Guillaume, tell us about life before you met Tomoko. Then I want to hear from both of you how you met, and then, we'll take it from there. So Tomoko, you can start.
Okay, sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sam, inviting us to this occasion. So I am originally from Japan. I lived 17 years in Germany. I'm a naturalized German citizen by now because I left Japan when I was 23. That's already 30 years ago. Like Sam said, I earned my enology and viticulture engineering degree in Germany and worked as a estate manager, winemaker for winery in the Rheingau region. Just right before that, during my enology studies, I came to Burgundy in 2005 vintage, just for 2 weeks to spy on how they make wine. And Chisa Bees of Simon Bees and Fils, the domain in Savigny-les-Bains, was kind enough to respond to my request. I was allowed to come for 2 weeks, also with a couple of other friends from my enology school, Geisenheim, in Germany. And there I met Guillaume, who was in charge of white winemaking. I mean, he's still in charge of white winemaking. We hit it off very well. We saw that we have very similar sensitivities when it comes to not just winemaking, but also wine drinking, our views about life, what we enjoy, what's important for us. And we said, well, one day we got to make wine together. We were already clear on that pretty much after 1 year after we met. But I was then already working in Germany, and so we realized our goal of starting to make wine together in 2010.
So that was the beginning.
Right.
Can I just ask you something? When you said you came to Burgundy while you were in Germany just to kind of snoop around or see what they were doing,
Yeah.
was that with the idea to bring good ideas back to Germany, or were you thinking maybe, you would come to Burgundy because you were ready for a change?
No. At that time, it was to bring the ideas back and experience back to Germany to continue working there because, I was always passionate about wine, but I was very much rooted in Germany at that time and also very partial to the grapes Riesling and also to Spätburgunder, which is in Burgundy, Pinot Noir. So that was one of the reasons. But for example, Riesling making and the white wine making in Burgundy are very different, very, very different. I thought it's good for me to have a different perspective on white winemaking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that made sense. All right. So Guillaume, you, Dijon, Burgundy,
Yes,
tell
I'm
me
a
how
true
you
Bourguignon.
came, through the sort of the ranks.
As you know, I started my career in winemaking at Etienne Sauzet. I worked there for 7 years before joining Patrick Bees at Domaine Simon Bees. And at Bees, I made 20 years there.
Wow.
And it's nearly the end.
And then Tomoko told us how you met. Can you clear something up for me? Are you? I'm confused, and I shouldn't be. Are you still working at Bees, or did you walk away to devote, time to your winery?
Yes. Since beginning of this year, I still work for Bees, but just 3 days a week.
Okay, so you pulled back to devote.
Yeah, and that will be definitely the end of March, and then I will be 100% with Tomoko at Chantereves.
Oh, so it's coming up.
Yes.
Tell me, Guillaume. I mean, why now? Why this year? I understand that the two of you really have a small but ambitious, winery. Why did you make the decision? Why not a year ago? Why not 2 years from now?
The big change for us was this opportunity to buy some vineyards in beginning of 2020. Before that, we were almost 100% what we call négociant vinificateur.
Right.
It means that we buy some grapes from other owners, and
so by acquiring the property, you felt you were going to need to devote more time to your project.
Yeah, but the big change is when you only have to vinify and age some wine in barrel, it's already a lot of work. But when you have vineyards, that's really another world.
Right. I want to get into that with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have time to do it.
So Tomoko began to work in our domain almost alone, but this situation couldn't stay for long.
Yeah.
I had to join, and financially now we can finance my salary too. That's why. That's an important point.
Well, yeah.
Only point.
And I don't think you're going to get too much argument from anyone. Tomoko, let me ask you something.
Yes.
You know, you talked about many, many years in Germany. What I'm curious is, while you were in Germany,
Yeah.
you had a lot of influences.
Yes.
You know, tell me what some of those influences were, you know, and how you applied them to wine, and even who some of the people were. Because is it fair to say that your tenure in Germany has a lot to do with how you think about wine, how you make wine, what you're doing now?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Since I decided to become a vigneron, so that's wine grower, because that's how we are brought up. I mean, like, that's how we are trained here in Europe. Is we don't just do winemaking or just viticulture. A European approach to winemaking is usually you do both. You start with the grape production, and then you make them into wine, and so that is primordial. That is same in Germany, also in France, quite similar. And then there is it's particular with Riesling making, because Riesling making, for example, it's not traditional. It's actually relatively new after the war that we could make a Riesling, dry Rieslings of the style that it is today, which means very fruit forward, very acidity driven. That was only technically possible after the war.
Why?
And that is because, like, for example, it gets a little bit technical, but I can explain that to you in a very flat and understandable terms. So, for example, the Riesling, dry Riesling from Germany of today is mainly you have a little bit of residual sugar, so that even though the Riesling is supposed to be dry, but it's a little bit sweet. And then it's very tangy because you conserve the whole acidity, meaning that you don't have any malolactic fermentation, as we call it, in Riesling. You try to block it. Whereas, so the comparison to that, white wine making, for example, in Burgundy, is that when the sugar is converted to alcohol. So when the alcoholic fermentation is over, and if you don't do anything to the wine, meaning if you don't sulfur it, if you don't put, it naturally phases into a second fermentation stage called malolactic fermentation, where lactic bacteria, so lactic bacteria is what you know from yogurt. So it's a bacteria that consumes and converts the malic acid, which is in wine, into a lactic acid, which we all know, for example, from yogurt. I mean, this happens naturally by bacteria. So, but this process is being mostly blocked in Germany, in order to conserve the whole acidity, because malic acid is much more tangy, much more zippy, whereas lactic acid is much softer and rounder. And so this process, it was only possible with the technical advancement of being able to understand, first of all, the wine chemistry and wine biology after the war, and also being able to especially filter the ready-made wine and filter out the bacteria and bottle. And this way you eliminate the lactic bacteria, you see, from your wine, and so you can bottle, which process is called sterile filtration. And this method was not available before the war.
So let me ask you a silly layman's question.
No problem.
If you did malolactic fermentation in Riesling and you didn't do it in Burgundy, I mean, would the wines, they wouldn't be what we know them as, but would it be just a terrible experiment, or there would be interesting wines?
Good point. I think Guillaume can answer you that question better because he knows different cases.
Yes, I tried by the past to block the malolactic fermentation in Chardonnay.
Okay.
Without success, I must say at the end, because in Riesling, the malolactic, the malic acid doesn't taste so green, which is the case for Chardonnay, and it doesn't make the wine elegant at all.
So is that indicative of the grape varietal, right?
I suppose.
Riesling,
I don't have any experience of Riesling, but
right. Yeah, I didn't want to
go. Chardonnay is for sure. Even in low acid vintages, I would do the malolactic fermentation.
Right. So let me ask you this first, Guillaume. So Tomoko, you spend all this time in Germany. You know, you're very sort of singularly focused to mostly Riesling.
Yes.
Guillaume, you're the quintessential Burgundian. Tomoko, when you got to Burgundy, and I know you worked, different places and all that. Did you guys have disagreements in making wine? I mean, was it the best of all worlds, or did you clash at all about any of this?
Oh,
not much.
Not much. No.
Okay.
No. Most of the time we agree, because more or less we have the same taste. I think we want to reach the same goal. Sometimes maybe,
and that's universal.
Sorry.
That's universal compared to whatever region.
Yeah, I think so.
It's so I think what's important for us as a team is that because we're husband and wife, we live together, like we drink wine together with friends, we buy wine together. So, we more or less drink the same type of wine together. And so our tastes are quite similar, not 100% identical, but quite similar. And also, as like palate of a person, any person evolves, right? What you like also evolves. So I think that's what's important as a husband and wife team, that our palates evolve together. And so after that, it's just in practical winemaking, it's just a question of how we reach our goal, right? And so it's a question of like, it's just technical details that we have to discuss. But most of the time we agree with each other. And I think this dynamic that is important. Like people come and say, it must be for you guys not very easy making wine together as a husband and wife. I'm sure you fight a lot. Don't you fight a lot? But we must say, I mean, there's hardly a disagreement. And when we disagree, I think what's great about making wine together is, we only make it once a year.
Oh, that's a good point.
But, I'm not meaning it ironically, it takes time. Yeah, it takes time. And so you see, like if I say A and Guillaume thinks it's rather B, we say, okay, well, wine is time. So like, let's wait for 2 weeks, a month and taste together again and see what we see. n'est-ce pas?
Well, a difference in opinion and, a dialogue is always good. But, I may have to do this interview a year from now because, as Guillaume said, I think he said March, basically he's going to devote all his time to Chantereves.
That's right.
So let's see what happens then, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all lovey-dovey and romantic now, but, a couple of months in the vineyards and in the cellar, 24/7. We'll see what happens. I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm very
I'm
very
We'll
positive.
see to that.
See you in a
I'm
year.
very positive it'll work out. Is it fair to say that, your wines have a Burgundian, German, and even a Japanese influence? I mean, has all that poured into your wines, do you think?
I would say yes, probably, because very, very often we think that the wines reflect the people who make it.
Right.
So in our case, of course, we have all this different inspiration. Even if we work for the same goal, I think it's we can't do without this.
I think that's
origin. Yes,
that's what may make your wines, more interesting than most. All right, so let's talk about the wines. Let's get into everything a little. You had mentioned this earlier, but I want you to just, go over it again. Chantereves has been a negociant vinificateur pretty much from the beginning. And
Right.
you mentioned you purchased, I think, at least around 5 hectares of your own vineyards. Can you first, again, just tell everyone what a negociant is, a negociant vinificateur, which is really up until now or recently, what you were doing.
Négociant vinificateur, meaning that we buy the grapes, or in case of white wine, freshly pressed juice or grapes.
Okay.
And we make our own wine. So, because the difference between a simple négoce and a négoce vinificateur is the simple négoce, you could be doing either making the wine yourself or buying the ready-made wine and sell them.
Right. Right.
So we emphasize that we are négoce vinificateur because all the wines that we bottle ourselves are made by us.
Right. So you are dealing with multiple growers, in different, regions in the area. Tell me, philosophically or process-wise, how do you select your growers and what's important to you from them? I know it's relationships and availability, but, tell me about that, because you want what you want, not what you can get. I mean, obviously, right? You want the best stuff. So how do you go about, selecting growers and, what demands do you, ask of them?
Oh, well, the first thing we do when we meet a new grower is to go in his own parcel and see how it is. We are always curious to talk with him to know how he works in the vineyard, but of course it's our job too. So we can see quite easily if he's working good or not, if he uses pesticides or not,
Right.
if he's bio or not. This is quite easy when you are used to it. It's quite easy to see.
Right. Has it become competitive to find, vineyards that follow your requirements? Like if I decided I wanted to come to France and become a negociant vinificateur, I mean, is all the good stuff taken up at this point, or can you get what you want?
We can't get all that we want, that's for sure.
Okay.
But at the end, we are not looking for specific appellation. We look for well-made grapes. That's the most important.
So you'll go where the quality is, not
absolutely, absolutely
right.
For example, we don't necessarily want to work with the appellation. I say Puligny because I work for Puligny. If it's not well made, it's much better to work with an Océdurez grapes well made instead of not so good Puligny. You know what I mean?
Right. So talk to me about some of your Negos vineyards, and the wines. I mean, I know at times you could make up to a dozen plus, reds and whites. Tell me about some of your Negos wines, some of your older relationships, and those wines just by name. It's going to be hard to cover all of them, but give me some good examples.
Yeah. I'll maybe name some that we like, which is a recent one. So like Guillaume was saying, for us, most primordial is that we like the vigneron, we like the grower, and we agree with the way it's being worked. So after that, that's most important. After that, whatever appellation, if the grapes are well made, we're confident we can make wine that we like to drink ourselves, and we can.
Right.
And so recently, as recent as, wait a minute, Pressant, c'était quand? 2015? No, 2019. Sorry. So we met a small grower in Côte de Beaune. He works with his father, actually a stepfather. They have together 5 hectares, so very small, and they only work alone. They only have like one person to help them in summer, but otherwise they all do everything by themselves. And because there are 5 hectares small domain, which is about the size that we have, very much sympathize with them. They're very hands-on, but very smart people. Everything is done by themselves. Their grapes are beautiful. And we had such a chance of, in 2019, buy the grapes of Beaune Premier Cru, Les Bressandes. It's one of the most celebrated Premier Crus from Beaune. And Beaune, I think as an appellation, is still not well recognized. It's not getting the recognition that it deserves for various reasons. I don't need to get into that here, but it's not because Beaune can't offer. Beaune offers tremendous diversity, opportunity, and quality. And we were so excited to be able to work with these grapes. Very small amount, we only made 2 barrels. But 2019 was a hot and dry vintage. And that was the first parcel of Negos grapes that was picked. So I went there with the picking bins. I spoke with the vigneron. I was doing just a tiny little bit of sorting in the vineyard with them. And then brought back, Guillaume and I, we put it into the fermenting vat. We usually take a juice and bring it to the lab for the initial analysis. And we were so amazed because it was such a balanced analysis, very remarkable for the vintage.
You were right from the beginning.
Yeah, we were very lucky. Well, we were very lucky from the beginning. It's so well done. And so I spoke about that to, for example, our colleague David Croix, who has his domain in Beaune and who's one of the most important vignerons in Beaune, elevating the renown of Beaune to what it used to be and what it should be today. And so he knew this vigneron, this father and son domain, because one of his vineyard is right next to theirs. And so he was saying, yeah, I know them, I observe them, I know how well they work. Yeah, he
So
was
you're
also
lucky.
amazed how lucky. And so
Yeah.
because we were so happy with those grapes, we told them, look, whichever appellation that you offer to us, we take them. And so it happened that in 2021, last year, from them, we could buy the grapes of Chantereves and another less known Premier Cru of Beaune. And so less known Premier Cru of Beaune or Chantereves Village is not exactly a super popular appellations, actually. Usually as a négoce, it could be
But that doesn't
risky.
seem to matter to you. It's about the quality of the grape, not what's trendy or hot or, what you think can sell, right?
Yeah, I think one thing that we have, one lucky status quo that we have is since we have been doing this for 10 years, and now at least we have the confidence to say to ourselves, if the quality of the grape is there and that we get along very well with the grower, then we can make wine that we can recommend to people with best of our conscience, And
Right.
so
that's the most important thing.
Right. So I spoke to one of our most important export client. She was saying, well, Chantereves, I only sell Chantereves of Tolobo, but other Chantereves we usually don't look for. But that didn't deter us. We were sure that we would be able to make Chantereves that people would say, wow, we should look into overlooked appellations.
Right. I think you're at the point, and you've earned that whatever you make will be made well, and there'll be interest in people wanting to drink it. That being said, you've made Volnay and Pommard, and Osé Dorez. You do all of that other stuff too, but it's very vineyard designate, select to what's important to you. Do you buy as much grapes now that you've bought property?
The négoce is still bigger than that we can produce from our own vineyard.
Right.
Yeah.
It's bigger, but because you now have the property, are you buying not less than the property, but less grapes than you used to as a négoce, or you're still buying the same amount?
No, we still buy the same amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're just adding to that.
No, because it's as you said, it's quite competitive to find some good grapes to buy, and we are very proud of what we are able to buy. So
right.
Yeah,
the story you told about the stepfather and son. That's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
So. Owning your own property is different than acquiring grapes as a négoce. You alluded to that before. And Tomoko, I know in the past you've said excellent farmers make excellent wine. I think, we all agree with that. The question is for both of you. You could jump in, whatever. Tell me about your vineyard philosophy and the practices that you follow. I think you've revealed a little of that, talking about other things. But there's a way, that you approach this. And the basic things that are important to you as far as the vineyards is what?
Okay. Well, we work bio, of course.
Right.
Even if we are not certified, but we complete this work, this bio, with phytotherapy, which is quite new approach here in Burgundy. Tomoko and I made several formations. Training with a guy who is called Eric Petiot. There's many different growers now who train with this guy to learn from him, and this is very, very interesting, and how can I say, complémentaire.
It complements,
It complements the bio approach,
organic.
Right.
the organic
Right.
approach. Yes.
Right. So you are practicing as close to organic in some newer ways. Certification doesn't matter.
Yeah, phytotherapy is actually to be aided by other plants to better the quality of your own farming. So, like using the decoction of horsetail or fermented extracts of different plants. It basically strengthens the immune system of the plant, immune system of
Right.
your vines. Yeah.
Right. So there's a diversity in the vineyards where everything is complementing everything, but it's thought out. Correct?
Yeah. And
So
even if you work organically, we still use copper and sulfur, and
Right.
this kind and phytotherapy helps to reduce the amount of copper and sulfur.
Right. So you're trying to be as minimal with that as possible.
Absolutely.
The property you recently bought is predominantly aligote, or it's
Aligoté?
algote. You know me, I'm some New York guy who can't pronounce French words
No
well.
problem. No problem. I was the same when I came here.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm sure
French
you
is
weren't.
impossible.
Um,
Still difficult.
But the property, is it predominantly algote?
No, no.
What-
It's actually quite varied.
Okay.
We bought altogether 4.7 hectares,
Right.
of which 4 hectares planted, and it's 1.5 hectare out of 4.2 is aligoté, and then other 1.5 hectare is Haute Côte de Bon Blanc, so that's Chardonnay.
Right.
And then we have 0.7 hectare, so it's quite a sizable plot of Savigny Rouge, so that's Pinot Noir.
Right.
We have 0.15 hectare of Savigny Blanc, so that's Chardonnay. And then we have 0.2 hectare of Chorey-les-Beaunes Rouge, so that's Chorey Village, Pinot Noir.
Right. Now the aligoté, is that the first time you worked with that grape? Not, I mean, the first time you were bottling it. I mean, were any of the other Negos vineyards aligoté?
The first plot of aligoté that we bought, it was in 18.
Right. But previous
18.
to that, did you make any aligoté from any of the other Negos? Okay. Can you?
In 17. In
Okay,
17, we made
less
our
of
first
that than
aligoté.
any.
But it
right,
was Negos.
less aligoté than everything else. Just can you tell me about the grape a little, aligoté? I mean, does it have similarities, to Chardonnay? What are the characteristics? Because I think a lot of people have tried it, drank it, but I think there's a lot of people, that may not know much about it, and you're starting to see more of it coming out of Burgundy. So how would you describe it?
Well, no, it's really something else compared to Chardonnay.
Okay, what are the differences?
And now with the climate change, I think aligoté can be one of the solutions to keep making some fresh and balanced white wines, because even if the grapes are ripe, there is always a good acidity in aligoté. That's
Right.
the big difference with Chardonnay. Chardonnay, especially in hot years, hot vintages, we really have to make the harvest at not between 12 and 12.5 potential alcohol. Otherwise, acidity will be too low, and by consequence, the wines too heavy, too fat.
So
mhm,
you have to deal with climate change as far as planting. You
of course.
mentioned, thinking about varietals, when you pick ripeness and all of that. Is it inevitable that who knows how long from now, when climate change really has its effects, will you blend, Aligoté with Chardonnay just to balance it?
Good
Or are they
question.
singular? Yeah. I mean, you're
Very good
not
question.
doing it. Yeah.
We we also have to deal
Sounds like a no, Guillaume.
with the law,
Right.
Yeah, sure. But well, why not? We can try, but as a Burgundian, we like we like
Right.
it. We like it separate.
Yeah. I think that's ultimately the answer. I mean, you could do, some blends, but certainly
Yeah, sure.
it
Yeah,
wouldn't
and
be the same.
there's another there's another aspect to it, because when we're planting, we are allowed to have up to 15% of other but authorized grape variety in your plot. Meaning that if you, for example, have Haute Côte de Beaune Blanc, which should be Chardonnay, but you're allowed
Right.
to have up to 15% of Aligoté in there. And so we, for example, with one of our colleagues whose Aligoté is very well known, we got an advice from him that when, for example, we do repiquage, that's planting the vines. I mean, replanting the dead vines in already planted plot. Like when a vine dies out, you have to replace it. So, like if it's a Chardonnay vineyard, why not replace it with a couple of aligotés?
Right.
So that, I mean, this we personally think it's a much better approach than acidifying the wine afterwards.
Right. That's a good point.
Mm.
Guillaume and Tomoko, we have to take a quick break. When we
Mhm.
come back, I want to talk to you. We move from the vineyard into the cellar. I just want to talk to you a little about, your winemaking practices for the reds and the
Sure.
whites. So we're talking to Tomoko and Guillaume from Chantereves. You're listening to The Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Kiki Luya, the Executive Director of Restaurant Workers Community Foundation, and I'm the host of a new podcast called Shift Work. In the last 6 months, some 6,500 restaurants have closed their doors, and there's never been a time when restaurants and their 12 million workers have been more vulnerable. It's time to transform hospitality. With Shift Work, a podcast made in collaboration with RWCF and HRN, we're shifting the conversation about how the restaurant food you love makes its way to the table. What does it really take to make that experience happen? And who are the countless workers responsible? We're talking porters, cleaning crew, prep cooks, servers, baristas, hosts, bartenders, barbacks, managers, sommeliers, and chefs. I'll also introduce you to organizations that are leading industry transformation. We'll discuss mental health, fair pay, racial justice, and how hospitality can change for the better. We need it. Listen to and follow Shift Work on your favorite podcast app.
Okay, we're back. We're back with my guests, as I mentioned in the intro, the magical duo of Tomoko and Guillaume, who make up Chantereves, and I mean that sincerely. All right, so we talked about, how important farming is, and, all the years that I've been doing the podcast, the recognition of how important farming is, and just not, the product itself manufactured in the cellar really is what makes, great wines. But you got to get into the cellar and make the wine. So let's talk about your winemaking. I know that you guys are very technical from experience, but I also know you're very intuitive. So without getting, and both of you may have to sit on your hands, without getting too technical, talk to me about your winemaking philosophy, because maybe they're buzzwords to winemakers, but there are things you do like whole cluster and natural mallow. Talk to me about the basic things that you do that's important to make the wines that you want to make. Start with white, because you're not making. There are certain things that cross over, but you're not making the whites exactly the way you're making the reds.
For both color, I would say precision, but simplicity.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
For the whites, we crush before pressing. We let the juice settling down for a night, and the day after we put the fresh juice in barrel for the fermentation. We use
without adding sulfur.
Yeah.
At that point, no sulfur. Okay.
Yeah, no, we had nothing. Fermentation is done with indigenous yeast.
Okay.
Indigenous yeast.
Yeah.
Right. Which is natural yeast. You're not,
natural yeast. Right. That's it. Where as we don't use any sulfur in vinification and aging, usually the malolactic fermentation is done quite quickly.
Right.
During winter, it's usually already done, even if the cellar is cold.
And you have no temperature control, right? So you're not manipulating anything by, manipulating the temperature.
No.
Okay.
All we do with temperature, we could build a cool room this year.
Okay.
So instead of manipulating the grapes or the fresh juice, we cool down the grapes.
Naturally
by putting them in the cool room, and that's this way it's very soft, and it's a lot of respect for the grapes.
Batonnage. Do you do batonnage? And just quickly tell people no batonnage?
No, batonnage is usually made to remove the lees from the bottom, to mix them in the barrel and provoke the autolyse. We don't do that because I think we lose the precision, and you can also have you gain what we call matière,
which is
the kind of structure. But this kind of structure that it's a kind of sweetness. The wines are dry, but it gives you the impression of roundness, sweetness, and we don't want this in our wines. So the only batonnage that we do is just before the racking, because when we move the wine from the barrel to the tank, stainless steel tank, we want to keep all the lees. That's why we do a batonnage just before the racking.
So, Guillaume, two things to that. You talked about moving from the barrel to stainless. Let's talk about the barrels. My sense is it's neutral or old oak, nothing too new, if at all. And then what about, because of lees and all of that, what about fining and filtration? I mean, how do you handle that?
Well, fining, we don't do it. We don't do any fining. Sometimes we need to filter a wine who is not completely clear or too cloudy.
Is that more for aesthetics? Just you want it to look?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what about the barrels?
sometimes we just have to filter the bottom of the tank and not the entire cuvee.
And that varies by vintage barrel, whatever. And no oak, right? Or no new oak?
No new oak, except that this year we bought some 600 liters barrels, new. We bought 3 of them, I think. And because the proportion of liquid and oak is the oak is not so important. It doesn't give too strong oakiness to the wine.
Yeah, just to add to that though, we, like you say, neutral oak, but our philosophy is actually not to buy a new oak. But the problem is that these puncheons, as you call them, I think 600-liter barrels,
Right,
they're
the
very
larger.
difficult to find. Yeah, they're very difficult to find secondhand.
So you have to improvise.
Yeah, well, yeah, and luckily Guillaume has colleagues in Puligny-Morachet and Chassagne-Morachet from whom we can buy old secondhand white wine barrels of different sizes, but not puncheons. So that's why it's not because we want to have the new oak from the puncheon, but it's because we didn't have a choice.
Right.
Yeah,
That's interesting. You have to deal with what's available. Now, talk to me about red wine. Similar philosophies, but you have to do certain things different with the reds. Can you talk to me about that, Elodie?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the red and whites are very different. But like Guillaume said, underlying philosophy for us, and that's one of the reasons why we said to ourselves we should make wine one day together, long time ago, is because already in 2005 when we met, both of us believed in fermenting with a natural yeast. And then also to intervene in winemaking as little as possible. And so 17 years ago, me working in Germany, Guillaume working in Burgundy, we still did some type of fining or maybe like more filtration at that time. But as time goes on, we make our own wines. We taste the wines, beautiful wines of our really, really accomplished colleagues. We do less and less, but controlled, meaning that it's not laissez-faire. We taste regularly, and we decide to do the minimum as possible. That's why the only filtration of, for example, 2020 vintage in whites that we did was Bourgogne Blanc cuvée, because that is the biggest cuvée of 30 barrels. And it takes too long time for it to sediment. It takes longer than 6 months to sediment completely. And so that's why we filtered just half of the cuve, half of the tank. But otherwise, we're not filtering any whites. And the reds, no fining, no filtration to begin with. So, sorry, making long story short. So to explain you, so this underlying philosophy for us is very important, especially also no temperature control, because we think temperature control during the fermentation is a big intervention in the expression of wine. And for us, what's also very primordial is to elevate the quality of the grapes and the energy that is already in the primary product, which is the grapes. So that's one of the reasons why we ferment our reds 100% whole cluster, nothing distemmed, because we think whole cluster fermentation as means for us is the best way to elevate the energy of the fruit.
Right. But you didn't always do whole cluster, right?
Sorry?
About 7-8 years ago, you switched to whole cluster?
Yes, very well. So from 2010 to 2013 vintage, during 4 years, we were destemming almost everything. And then from 2014 vintage, we turned to 100% whole cluster, which is maybe at that time too bold and a little bit reckless.
What's the moment that you decide to switch? As you do some barrels where you did whole cluster, or what you were looking for to make the wine more complete by doing the stems and that's why you switched?
Yeah, biggest inspiration we got, and especially for me, was when we could taste in the cellar of Nicolas Faure. He's a small grower in Côte d'Ivoire. One of his most known cuvées is his old vine Aligoté from Pernin-Vergelès, and then his New Saint-Georges Village, Les Herbus. We could taste Nico's 2013 New Saint-Georges Village, Les Herbus, in his cellar. And he's known to always keep his whole cluster. Now, in 2013, it was a big challenge, I think, big adventure for a small grower like him, who doesn't have much of a wiggle space to go for. And we could taste that from the barrel. And I said, wow, I was just knocked out by how beautiful the wine was. And so I must say, Guillaume always wanted to go a high percentage whole cluster, and I didn't have the guts to do it. And after tasting Nico's whole cluster, I said to Guillaume, you know what? I'm ready. So
great.
And yeah.
So one more question on the winemaking. The use of yeast, the inoculation for the reds, is it a little different than the whites, or is it the same?
Sorry, inoculation of the whites and inoculation of the
no,
reds?
the red wine. I mean the yeast, or the way you. I don't know if I'm asking it right. I mean, is there, what's it called, pied de cuvée or
pied de cuve? Pied de cuve.
Do you have to do that with reds, and you don't necessarily do it with whites?
We mostly do with both colors, though. But that is with that's still with the natural yeast, and that is not with the right.
Explain. It's almost like people know how to make sourdough bread with starter. Just explain what that means.
Yeah, so it's a starter in English. I mean, Guillaume can explain it, I think. Pied de cuve.
Starter, yes. From my point of view, it's much more useful for Pinot Noir rather than Chardonnay.
Right.
Because when you work 100% whole cluster, if you don't have a correct fermentation, you have a big risk to get some acetate from the really beginning of encuvage.
Wait a minute. Acetate is what is an acetate in English? Acetone. It's something that when you, it's a smell that you get, for example, from the manicure.
Right. It's like a nail polish or remover.
Exactly.
It's very strong, a little offensive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you want to stay away from that.
If you have a weak fermentation with 100% whole cluster and almost without sulfur, after 2 or 3 days, you will get some acetate.
So that's a bad sign.
Using a pied de cuve is the best way not to have it.
Great. All right. So that's, I'm sure we can get into a lot more detail on the winemaking, but that pretty much, covers everything. I want to do something with you guys that I do with all my guests every week, and it's called our wine list. And what I do is I ask my guests 5 questions. I've asked everyone the same 5 questions. They don't change. We've done over 200 of these. And what I want to do is, with each question, I want each of you to answer. Some of them may be the same answers because you guys are now somewhat attached at the hip. Some may be different. Don't dwell or linger. Be spontaneous. Go quickly because we're running out of time. But the first The first question is, what are you drinking now? What's in your fridge? What are you experimenting? Other than tasting your wines, like Tomoko, I mean, do you continue to
Cool
drink
question.
Riesling?
Beer.
What? Okay. So Guillaume, your answer's beer. You're done. All right. Tomoko?
What I'm drinking, for example, a lot of Labé from Jura, one of the
Okay.
most celebrated organic natural wine producer.
Spell
From
Labé, Labet?
right,
That's it.
LABET, Labé,
Okay.
both whites and reds.
When there is
Okay.
some Labé in the fridge, I don't drink beer anymore.
Okay. All right. So you could be swayed. I like that. All right. So anything else?
Anything else? Yeah, sure. There are many. I mean, if it's from Burgundy, it's from one of our most valuable colleague, Domaine Dandelion. I think the wines aren't yet exported to New York, but they're coming to the Palais in New York soon. We're coming.
Oh,
with
good.
them.
In March. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Will
Yeah.
you be in for the Grand Cru portfolio tasting, or you're just going to do
Yes,
Paulet?
Yeah.
there too. Yeah,
Both? Okay, good.
both.
All right. The La Paulet is available to the public. The Grand Cru is really an industry tasting. All right, so those are good answers. The cool thing is, what's it called? Dandelion? You just
Yeah, Domaine Dandelion. So it's dandelion, right? In
right.
English.
So you just revealed something that we should look out for down the road, not right now.
Yeah,
All right.
they make mostly haute côte de beaune, pinots, or aligotés. Beautiful wine. It's one of the most accomplished and pure natural wine that you can find from the region.
Sounds like your stuff too, and I don't mean to call it stuff. All right, second question. Maybe you agree on this. Maybe you each have a different one. But tell me your favorite wine and food pairing. Not something you eat, every night, every month, and not what you think a great wine pairing, wine and food. What you like. I mean, what's your favorite wine and food pairing? Tomoko, you go first.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe Guillaume's gonna say the same thing. My most favorite
That's okay.
is Vin Jaune from Jura with
Right.
breast chicken cooked in white wine with a cream sauce and mori. Mori is mushrooms.
Mushrooms, right.
Yeah, mori is also from the region. I mean, that's usually many people eat that for Christmas, and that's my most favorite.
What's the first thing you said? Vin jaune? What is
Vin jaune? Yeah, vin jaune is an oxidative white wine.
Oh, vin jaune. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I process the way I pronounce French, so I get it now. So vin jaune with the breast. I got that. All right, Guillaume, same or something different?
Oh, something different.
Beer and a sausage.
That's
Right?
No,
Okay.
we are not in Germany.
No.
No, I love beef, so I would say côte de bœuf, a dry aged côte de bœuf with our Savigny-les-Beaunes Rouge.
Okay. I think that's your favorite, but that probably could work for anyone too. All right. So I know you guys are always in the cellar, you're in the field, you're talking to your negocios and all that. The third question is your favorite wine restaurant and or bar. And the idea of the question is not to leave anyone out or to favor anyone, but just pick a place, I guess, in the area that you don't have to drive too far, that has a great selection. When you walk in, it's a great vibe, and the people that own it or run it just know what they're doing. Is there any place, that comes to mind?
Absolutely.
I think we will have the same answer.
Yeah, more or less.
Go ahead.
We have the chance since how much? 2 years? To have a wonderful restaurant here in Savigny-les-Beaunes. It's called Le Soleil. And there is two chefs. Leila from Morocco originally, and Svante from Sweden. I think they are not married, but they are a couple in life and also in the kitchen.
Nice.
And
so that's Le Soleil, Soleil.
Yeah, like the sun.
Okay. And 70 Le Bon. Okay.
And
you agree, Tomoko?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's we are so happy they're there, and we must add, very important, that it's managed by one of the nieces of deceased Patrick B's, Lola, and she her wine list is one of the most exciting of the region, because she worked for a very known wine restaurant near Barcelona for 10 years. And so we get to drink really beautiful new wave Spanish wines as well, and many different natural wines from all over France too.
It sounds very interesting. That's the answer I'm looking for. I mean, there's a lot of great places to probably go to, but there's some, there's an interesting aspect, to the chefs, to the people picking the wine and all that. So that's a great answer. All right. Fourth question. I think probably get a different answer from each of you. Here's the question. When I originally asked this question, I asked my guests, what's your favorite all-time wine? And when I asked that question, I was curious about, hey, what was the rarest, most expensive wine you ever drank? I don't care about that anymore. What the question has morphed into is, what's that wine in your life, your career, in your travels that had an impression, that changed the way you think about wine, that enlightened you, that was a gateway, that important wine. I'm sure running up to what you're doing now, there was a wine that, really had that impact. Can you think of one, Tomoko? Can you think of one, Guillaume? And if it's more than one...
Just one, or is it okay?
One or two? No,
one
a couple.
Or two. Okay, max two. Okay, because I exactly
not
have
max two, but not just one. Whatever you have.
All right. It's quite. They have direct impact, I think, on what we're making today.
Right.
So one is Nuit Saint-Georges Premier Cru from Domaine de Chassonnet. The owner
Spell Chassagne for me.
Chassagne is CHSS.
CHA?
Sorry, CHASSORNE. I think it's like Y. Sorry, NEY.
I'll look it up. Who's the? Did you say? Were you going to say the winemaker?
Yeah, Fred Cossard. Cossard is his last name, Cossard,
so
and his first name is Fred. Yeah.
I will get the correct thing. So
it's imported in New York. The thing is, I think the vintage was, if I'm not mistaken, I think vintage was maybe 92 or 94. Yeah, because I don't remember the vintage, unfortunately, but he is one of the pioneering natural winemaker in the region together. And it's also, of course, whole cluster fermentation. And I was knocked out by the beauty of it. So that's one for me. Okay. And the other one is, I'm sure you know it. It's from a celebrated grower in Cornas in Rhône Valley called Thierry Allemand. So Thierry Allmand's Cornas, but sans soufre, so no sulfur cuvée of 2001.
Okay, those are great.
It's such a complete ephemeral wine with a beautiful presence. And so it's,
Tomoko, it's zero sulfur? There's no sulfur? He made it without any sulfur? Wow.
Yeah, he makes, not every year, but there are no sulfur cuvées that he makes. It's not the same label.
Right.
It's a particular label, and it's more difficult to find than his usual Cornas cuvées. Right. But one of our important client offered it to us. We drank it with him, and I still remember how it tastes. That's already a couple of years ago.
That's how you answer the question. Those those are the important wines. All right, Guillaume, do you have something that checks that box?
Yes. I have something. It's about
I'm going to guess it's not a Riesling. Go ahead.
No, it's not a Riesling.
Go ahead.
It's an old memory from more than 20 years ago. I had the Volnay Cailleret 1991 from La Pousse d'Or, made by Gérard Potel at that time. And this one is still
Who'd
in
you
my,
say, Potel?
memory. Yes, Potel.
Right, Gérard Potel.
Yeah.
Okay, so that Volnay, that's the one that sticks out. All right, good job. I didn't mention this, and I have one more question, but I just wanted to say that, we promote the show on social media, and I will post these answers because our listeners love to hear, what you're answering, because it's to them, it's new finds. It gives them a little insight. So we will post the answers in the coming week. Here's the last question. Cool. The last question is best wine around 15, 20, 22 bucks, a red and a white. I don't want you to answer that. What I want you to answer is, we all know that Burgundy in the last 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years has become so expensive. Some wines are so rare. The auction houses are driving, the prices up, the scarcity. So tell me, if I wanted to find the best value to cost in Burgundy, what should I be drinking? Like, is Aligoté one of the answers? Tell me where the best value in Burgundy is. And, it could be your wines. It doesn't have to be. I just want people, I don't want them to be scared away from Burgundy because of price or scarcity, because there's plenty of wine there. What's a way to drink good
totally
Burgundy?
Agree. Yeah.
Aligoté is for sure one of the answer.
Okay, so that's the white. What would you say for a red?
Haute Côte.
Harder, right?
Haute Côte.
Yeah, Haute Côte de Beaune. There are many, also because of the climate change. You see, Haute Côte is higher in altitude. 30 years ago, it had more difficulty than it has today to ripen each year. And these days, since already 10 years, it ripens every year. There's no problem. And
so it's been
so
good. And you make Haute Côte de Beaune.
We do make Haute Côte de Beaune, yeah.
Right.
There are many. For example, there's also a village level red called Côte du Nuit Village. I have a couple of good friends making them. They can have great character, finesse, and still affordable.
Right.
Also, I recommend you look for appellations that from Burgundy they haven't yet heard of. Not heard of, like less heard of, or
like
less
Marsanais,
renowned maybe. Yeah, like Marsanais, like Fissin, like Ladois, like Churey-les-Beaunes, like Auxey, like Saint-Romain, Montely.
Though that's that is definitely a strategy, because in those areas there's some terrific makers. They're making good wines and they're farming good grapes. So what's encouraging is you mentioned 6, 8, 10 different options. So if you really love Burgundy, there are options that are just not always super expensive, or certain names that everyone has to relate to.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Not to forget Marange, because that's the southern.
Don't you make Marange too?
We make Marange too, but we also have wonderful colleagues, new and old, in Marange. Marange is now really coming. Almost every year we see new producers from Marange, either taking over the family domain or buying the domains. You'll see Marange will be really coming in the next 3 to 5 years. You'll see.
That's great. All right, we have to wrap up the show. Very good job. Great job on the wine list. Like I said, I'm going to post those. I just want to do a quick wrap up and, let people know where they can get more info on you. But before I do that, I just wanted to ask you about something. Your label is very understated and elegant, and I won't even describe it because I want people to seek it out. But what was the inspiration for that label? How did you decide to come to the label and, the hands?
The hand logo. So actually, Sam, we had the same label since 2010 up to 2019 vintage, and that is going to change from 2020 vintage, which is going to hit the US market middle of this year. Yeah.
With hand?
With no hand, unfortunately.
Okay. Oh, I'm sad.
Yeah, but coming back to the hand, so at that time, you say it's understatement, but it's because we wanted to show with that label that we are newcoming producer. We don't own any vines. We didn't inherit any vines, but we're still very, very much in love with the region. And so we wanted to make wine with the respect that we have to the region, and at the same time show that even though we are négociant, we are vinificateur. That means we make wines by our own hands, and our wines are artisanal products. So those hand emblem on the labels, old labels, are one is Guillaume's hand, and the smaller one is my hand, to show that we're making artisanal wines together.
That's a great story, and I'm sorry that I'm not going to see it in the future. All right, we have to wrap up the show. We went way over time. My engineer, Kevin, again, is probably going to yell at me, but I can handle that because I always run long. So if you have a question, suggestion, wine happening, or event, hit me up at sam@thegrapenation.com. That's sam@thegrapenation.com. Subscribe to the Grape Nation podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your pods. Hit that subscribe button so that as soon as the episode comes out, you will be able to hear Tomoko and Guillaume. You can follow us on Instagram at @SBenRuby and on Twitter at BenRuby, but you can always use the hashtag The Grape Nation. On Facebook, we're at The Grape Nation. As I mentioned, we'll post Tomoko and Guillaume's wine list on our social media sites, starting probably as soon as today, maybe tomorrow. So Tomoko and Guillaume, where can we find more information or your wines? And if we want to follow you on social media, where should we go?
We don't yet have a developed website on our own.
Okay.
Our apologies. But we are on Instagram mainly.
Okay.
And on Facebook page. We're the most active on Instagram, showing the images from our vines, images from our cellar, from our harvest. If you want to reach out and ask us questions directly, the best is to write in one of our posts.
Okay. And, in doing my research and following you for a long time, I know that you don't have a website. But if you Google Chantereves, you will get, retailers will come up, distributors. So there's information, where if you want to find the wine, you Google the name and you will get some information, not necessarily from the site.
You can.
The social media helps.
Social media helps, but also our apologies and also our gratitude to one of our great importing, distributing clients, Grand Cru Selection in New York. On their website, there's a quite comprehensive information on us.
Yes, I was going to mention that. It will show you the wines. It'll show you, how they're made and all that information. So that's GRANDCRU, 2 words, Grand Cru Selections. They import and distribute the wines. All right, we got to wrap up. I want to thank our guests, Tomoko Kuriyama and Guillaume Boat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Separate names, but together for life. I can't thank you enough for doing this and giving us a peek into what you guys are doing. I mean, like I said, you are a magical duo and you are making magical wines. And I was really interested in your story and I wanted other people to hear it. And I think all that soulfulness and everything translates into the wines. And, you know, one of the reasons I do the show is to get the story out, but even, you know, is important to get people to try the wines. So hopefully, you know, we did that. So thank you for coming on and telling the story. Thank you to our engineer, Kevin, and everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. I'm Sam Ben-Ruby, and you've been listening to The Grape Nation. The Grape Nation is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find us at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be part of the food world's most innovative community? Subscribe to the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join the HRN family by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. And thanks for listening.